me by the what, fourth or fifth time, y'all gonna be able to do it.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say welcome. Welcome to the Triangle Cultural Art Gallery. This session today is all about our trip going to Ghana. One of the things that we try to do here at the gallery is partner with the community to make sure that we form experiences to enhance and grow our knowledge about history, culture, and in this particular case, we're going to actually get to explore history, art, culture in a whole nother country. And so we've had the great benefit of having Professor Emeritus Charles Joyner from North Carolina State School of Design to come and talk about the kind of trip that he's taken students for, I guess they did it for a little bit over 20 years. And we're doing a similar experience with an art lens going to Ghana for approximately 10 days on the ground. So I'm going to turn it over to Professor Joyner.
Okay.
And let him tell us more about the trip that he's taken and where we're going to be going in May.
You were going to
Yeah. So we'll see a little bit.
yeah, a little bit. Okay, well, thank you, Jason. My name is Charles Joyner, and I'm a retired professor in the College of Design at NC State. I'm taking full advantage of that retirement. Yeah. So tonight, what I figured might be the best thing to do, because I am not a tour promoter, but coming to you this evening, I can tell you what my experiences have been in this country, Ghana, and as a matter of fact, I have traveled to almost 8 countries now on the continent of Africa. And this continues to be my favorite one. I made more than 20 trips to this country over a course of about 17 years. And it was truly rewarding. So I'm gonna get right into my slides. So what I titled this talk is Stepping Out on Faith, Finding My Visual Voice in Ghana. And growing up in rural North Carolina, Smithfield, Johnston County, in the 50s and early 60s, I can tell you that one of the worst things that you could be called, other than the N-word, was for somebody to say that you were from Africa. Now, think about that. Because what we want to do is that, you know, you're looking at someone who had no history, no information about what the world was about. And so, in even thinking about my first trip in 1995, I'm wondering, what kind of place is this? Because truly, or clearly, all we would see in most cases were a lot of poverty, people starving. You know, that's what television told us about it. And I can remember also being a student in undergraduate school at North Carolina A&T, and there were students from different countries in Africa, and they wouldn't speak to us. So one would really wonder about this divide that was going on. On one hand, those of us, African American here in the United States, and on the other hand, people from Africa. And what was it that was really, you know, this conflict? And so a lot of my work, as I started to look at this, really is about those two communities coming together, trying to create my own reality where both are celebrated. And so later in the talk, I'll point to one piece on the wall that really begins to address that, okay? So let me go to the slides here. And so, first thing, started out with NC State University, and we decided that We wanted to go to Ghana and establish linkage agreements with most of the universities there. And I just kind of point this out to you, the continent of Africa. I think it's 54 countries or so, maybe 57 now. Maybe there's a division between Somalia and some of the others. But anyway, so Ghana is in the Gulf of Guinea, all right? And almost directly on the equator. And when you get there, the funny thing that interesting thing that you see is this: sun comes up in the morning at 6 a.m., sun sets at 6 o'clock in the evening. I don't care when you go there. It doesn't matter if it's in January or if it's in August. Sun comes up, 6 a.m. in the morning, sun sets, 6 p.m. in the afternoon. So you are right, really almost on the equator here, and that's what really makes doesn't change much in terms of that time frame. What you see is this red line is my voyage, my journey. And this started when we realized that our first trip, taking students to the university in Kumasi, Kwame Nkrumah, University of Science and Technology, we expected them to show us around the country. Here we are sitting in their classrooms for 5 of the 6 weeks that we were there. We went nowhere. Whoa. I'm telling you. And we did go to Cape Coast and Elmina, and I'll talk about that a little later. That's about a 3-hour trip from the university and then back. So I can say that 1 week out of the 6 weeks that we were there, we had an opportunity to travel. After the trip in 1997, the spring of 1998, I went back to Ghana. I sat down with the faculty in the College of Art at the University of Science and Technology, and I said, brothers, sisters, I give our first program a D-. And they were shocked because they had thought that, had really put this thing together. And I said, well, why? And I said, we didn't go anywhere. You didn't take us to your village. You didn't take us where all of these things are being made, but yet you talked about them. And half of the people in the room said, well, we haven't been there either.
Oh.
And I mean, I'm like, what? I am shocked to hear this. Okay, next slide. And I'm thinking, why? Well, because we don't need to go there. We kind of got the information from students coming in, from reading books about. So they don't travel. And we found out that throughout the country, not only is it a regular thing. I had one faculty member who drove me to Cape Coast to see the slave dungeons. And this individual told me that was his first trip there ever. Wow. I couldn't believe it. It was just shocking. So I redesigned the program, and I said, instead of sitting in a classroom for 6 weeks, we're going to travel for 4 weeks. And that's why you saw that red line. That was my journey over that 4 weeks. And then we're going to settle into working with an NGO for the last 2 weeks of the program to kind of, let people see what we were able to do. All right, let me talk about the country a little bit, the place. It is amazingly beautiful. Lots of different geographical content of the country. Savanna grasslands and almost deserts in the northern part of the country near Burkina Faso. Very lush forests and rainforests in the south. It's where we are here. All right, next slide. But we're talking about modern cities. I remember a student, a mom who was in one of my presentations of a student who was going to the program, and this is really interesting because you never think that this is a college educated woman. Of course, now I can say the same thing about myself when I was coming along, didn't know anything about Africa, and she asked me, "Well, you're not gonna have my son and the rest of these kids living in a tree, are you?" so anyway, Modern City, the National Culture Center, one of the large, and then only on the right hand side, a large commercial building in downtown Accra. Accra is the capital city. It has about 3 million people, but surrounding Accra, there's probably another 2 million in outlying neighborhoods, in the suburbs, I'll call them. Okay, all right, okay. But then on the coast, along the coast, and Accra's along the coast, but this is west of Accra, and this is Cape Coast and Elmina. And so you kind of can really see the diversity in what is going on in the land. This is all water. This is a fishing fleet. This fleet goes out. They will, you'll see 40 individuals on one of these boats, and they're headed out. It is an amazing sight to see, okay? And so what I've done here is giving you a little bit of now another area on the coast, but also from one of the forts in the country in this same area. And you can see all of a sudden now you're looking at buildings that are literally built back in colonial times.
Wow.
Okay, so a lot of these buildings, especially the ones that are kind of yellow in color, they actually date back to the early 1800s, okay, in the country. All right, okay. So this is one of my favorite places. Because it almost simulates what my work looks like. Just a cluster of patterns and forms and so forth. I don't know whether I'm going to take you there or not, but this is the biggest market in West Africa, and and it's always this way. And so when you get down in there, and generally what I do is that we have a guide that will lead us through different places in there, and so this kind of gives you a sense of how the people connect, and it is absolutely amazing to be there on any given day, and all of the conversations that are going on, and all of the noise, and the selling and buying and bartering that's taking place. Okay, and so that's a kind of a bird's eye view of that same marketplace. And so all of these lines that you see along here are the places that people actually are shopping. Okay, we're looking at the top of most of the shops. Okay, now while we're on the coast, we will absolutely visit Cape Coast Castle. All right, this is the start, or let's say the staging place of the Atlantic slave trade. This is one of the biggest forts. It is humongous. All of these are dungeons where Africans, the enslaved people, were kept until the ships arrived offshore. And then you probably have heard of the door of no return, where they were loaded onto smaller boats and taken out to the ships that would make the Atlantic trade. There's another one of these at Elmina, Ghana. Out of the maybe 100 or so castles, slave dungeons on the west coast of Africa, there's probably 70 or so in Ghana. Why? Because they had the most gentle shoreline. Okay, Senegal has a number of them, and you can see ones in Senegal as well. But Ghana had more than any other country in Africa. Okay. I thought I'd throw that slide in there. I was cheating a little bit. I don't know whether we're gonna stay there or not, but this is this is Coconut Grove Resort, and it is along the same roadway as the castles. As a matter of fact, I'm going to insist that we walk from the resort through a village, fishing village, to the castle. Okay, so you can interact with people as you go along. Okay, all right. So the people. Okay, it took me my first trip. In other words, in 1995, it was a trip to organize this linkage agreement. We were only there for about 12 days on the ground with administrators and faculty and some students, by the way. And I was shocked by some of the poverty that I saw. It was amazing. I didn't expect as much of it in certain places, and yet there was this spectrum of driving through other neighborhoods where there were large 5,000 square foot homes, beautiful gardens, and so you've got this incredible spectrum of those that were well-to-do and those that really were living under a roof and 3 walls, okay? And then about 5 days into the trip, it hit me to put my camera down, all right? And it'll happen to you. Because this is what the most wonderful thing happens, is that relationship that you build between the people there. It was pretty amazing. And all of a sudden, I wasn't looking through that lens trying to decide on what a good photograph was making. I had something else. There was some personal relationships that were more important than me looking and putting the camera, and hopefully that will help it happen to you. This is a place that we're going to visit. It is a bead village in Crobo. Can you go back to that one, please? Okay, and this is actually the chief of that village and his wife, and it is CD Beads. And now CD makes glass beads out of recycled bottles, beer bottles, wine bottles, and he sells those beads all over the world. As a matter of fact, I met him at the International Folk Art Festival in Santa Fe, New Mexico, some years ago and surprised him that we were there. But first of all, so we may do a bead workshop on site.
That would be one.
All right. Okay. So you don't see any people starving in these photographs. There are no children are starving. They just are not, because there's lots of agriculture in the country, and the people, and you'll see different things that are going on, but these are all school children in elementary school, and we always visit a school and take all kinds of supplies and so forth, and I ask my students to always bring a soccer ball, take the air out of it, put it in your bag, and then when we get to God, we blow it up. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. And then we get there, and what do? They do just a festival, small one-day festival for us, and so you see a dance class that is participating in, making sure that we're welcome. And then, of course, you have to start to look at what they're wearing. All of this wax print and this batik and all kinds of things that show up as part of that. But that's all over the country. Okay, so I'm taking these visual notes in, thinking, this is,
Candy store.
Candy store, artist playground. Okay. We won't get here. This is northern Ghana. It's on the border of Burkina Faso and Ghana, but it is just to show you, these houses are built by the women, and they're all mud. The mud houses, it's just like making a piece of ceramics, only you live in it. You know.
Is that the front door?
Yes, that is the front door.
So they kind of crawl into the house?
Yes, yeah.
Did they burn a fire?
Yeah, it's they have a opening that, and the air just takes the smoke right out of the top of these particular rocks. And they're all painted and decorated by the women.
Wow.
Who make ceramics and make these incredible shapes. So you can see all of this information now. I mean, everywhere we were headed, you know, the people just invited us in and made us feel welcome here. And as a matter of fact, this young man's grandmother was one of the significant artists in the community that actually started a lot of this. They're painting the houses, and then there's a large church that this also was doing, a mud church, believe it or not. Okay, all right. Okay. Here's one of the famous cloths, and so again, we're gonna be in the Adinkra village. We're gonna go to the ceramics village, and you don't find all of these things in the same places. You know, you gotta move around to be able to, you know, and that's what was so exciting about it, is that it forced us to say, okay, where's the next place? Well, the next place might be the Adinkra. Okay, now Adinkra, there's about 60 or 70 different stamps, Adinkra stamps. And you can see some of them used here. And it is a funeral cloth. Now it's moved to being also a cloth that's worn during celebrations. But in the beginning, its use was to wear at funerals. And so if you were a mayor of a town or a village and unfortunately passed away, your funeral would last for about 5 days. Okay, so, and then that last 2 days is nothing but a big party, you know, just trying to celebrate your life. I mean, it's big party, dancing, drinking, snot, a whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
But,
that's what we do.
yeah, so, okay, all right, and so here are the stamps, and what do? And this is what's so amazing about it. You kind of, so it's one thing to look at this cloth. It's another thing to actually see these people make these. This is calabash, or gourd, and it's carved, and the pieces are about this big. Okay, and they are used, and then there's an ink made, and you can see some of them where they've been used before, dipped into ink and stamped onto the fabric. Okay? All right. And I asked this group of women in the pottery village, now they're making a certain kind of pot. This is a spice bowl. All right? And that spice bowl is sold all over the country. It comes from this one village on the mountainside of Impriso is the name of the place. And so what they do is they carve this clay almost handmade, and then it's the inside of it is scooped out, and then there's a piece of corn cob that makes, can you see the lines in there? That's so that when you rub your spices across there. Yeah. Now, there's no kiln, you know, where your ceramics dry and you take them to this oven, put it in there. Nope. Once the ceramics is dry, take them out in the yard, cover them with palm leaves and wood, light the match, light the fire. And that's why they get the black color also, is from the smoke. Okay? And there's a big heap of just fire going, and those pots are in there, you know, sealed, and the clay is, you know, Arden and so forth and so on. Okay, all right. So, and this is another village that's in the eastern part. These are women who are part of Aid to Artists Ghana, ATAG. And they're making more of a decorative pot, but these are all also hand-built ceramics, okay? And then they show you how that pot is actually fired in an open pit. Okay, all right. Beads from CD beads. Okay? Glass beads made from, so wait a minute, what? Broken bottles, wine bottles, beer bottles, just as a matter of fact, you can take your own bottles there if you're in a long-term workshop, and people do that, take their own glass and make beads. Next one. And these beads are sold all over the world. I mean, when you African bead stores, this is the guy, Mr. CD. And there's a reason his name is CD. See, Ghana's money is a CD. So he's a money man, let me tell you. And so his beads are world known. Okay, all right. Okay, so here's some of them. So anyway, go back to that slide. Yeah, and these are crucibles where the shaped broken glass, very fine glass is put in here, and this is put into an oven, a home-built oven, basically, a kiln. And once it's fired, this guy brings them out and he holds it here, and he'll take a small tool, a metal tool, and he'll shape that bead while it's hot. I mean, it is glowing hot, and he's sitting there shaping them. And that's what he's getting, depending on the kind of glass that he's using. Okay? All right, so then I go to Bonware, because I've heard and I've seen it, that Mr. Samuel Kofi is the star of this wonderful book, Wrapped in Pride. This was published in 1998, and he is the most celebrated Kente weaver in all of West Africa, including Nigeria. I mean, it doesn't matter.
He's the man.
He is the man. And he has a store in Bonware. So what happens? Charles Joyner shows up there. What was the amazing part of this, and I tell you what, it just gives me goosebumps every time I talk about it. I had a copy of this book, and I took it with me, and the students said, wait a minute. Said, we want to be a part of this. And I said, well, how can you be a part of this? We're going to sign that book. And every student on that trip signed that book and had a statement to say to Mr. Kofi.
Wow.
I mean, it was amazing. So here it is. And it's it's strip woven. And you go into this big studio and there's like 10 weavers in there, and they go, because they're throwing these shuttles back at whatever those things are called. But then you say, oh God, isn't this amazing? I mean, you're looking at it, and then all of a sudden you say, wait a minute. This loom did not come from Amazon or Lowe's, or it's a handmade loom. It's good. I mean, just sticks and pieces of, I don't know.
Like grooves in it.
Well, I think some of them might be pallets, that they get from shipping. I mean, they cut the, unbelievable, right? Okay. So there we are, that whole group. So we experts, because we got there, they put several of us on looms, and we we just did our whole thing.
Did y'all make those?
No. We weren't there that long. I'll tell you what, that is hard. I mean,
Yeah.
and these guys are fast. I mean, I'm telling you, they're moving their hands like this, and they're pushing the thing down, they're throwing another thread across the end. But the amazing thing about that, they know the pattern also. They understand what the pattern is that's gonna be, you know. So, okay. All right. So then, always some unusual thing happens. So we're in the gallery, and the guide says to me, Prop, we need to go across the street. And I said, why? He said, there's a studio across the street that I want you to see. So we leave the Artists Alliance gallery, big gallery, lots of paintings in there from all over Ghana, from West Africa, from Nigeria, everywhere. We go out, we cross the street, and this is what we see. You know what they are?
Like carnival rides.
Carnival rides. You might think, yeah, man, that's it. Huh?
Are they caskets?
Caskets.
Oh.
Coffins.
Oh my goodness.
Let me tell you, most amazing thing I have seen in my life. So this is pretty recent, like started back in the 50s when a guy, he's a wood carver, friend passed away, but friend loved his Mercedes, so the guy built a Mercedes and just absolutely took a T, and then that's what they buried him in. Wow. And it caught on. It caught on across the entire country.
Wow.
Now, most Christians, and Ghana is 70% Christians, said, nah, I don't want to be buried in one of those. But there's a lot of people. Next slide. I'm telling you, and you're, you know, and this is, you know, I think it's one thing. Now they have several of these pieces in the International Funeral Museum. I think it's either in Memphis or Nashville, Tennessee. They have, you know, and they paid several thousand dollars for them. But we were just blown away. But then I said, well, I want to see the workshop. So we go downstairs. First of all, I noticed there are no power tools. Because there are no lights.
Oh.
Do you hear me? It's just, all of this is handmade.
Wow.
With, you know, just a saw and a chisel and you know, you have to be blown away by just all of this just amazing.
Right.
Yeah. So all of this is going on, and I'm collecting information about my work. I got a sketchbook now; it's pretty full, and so, you know, it's going to have a major impact on our work. Let me show you something that I think is also incredible. This is a strip of kente. This is Ewe. It is not Ashanti. And the difference is that the patterns on these are much more intricate. Look at this.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
That's beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful? This is Mr. Samuel Kofi's work.
Wow. Wow.
Unbelievable.
That's gorgeous.
You know, it's you know, it's just the mind blow, and you can see the difference in the two patterns. This is very much Ashanti, and all of these patterns have a particular meaning. They might be celebrating. I think there's one pattern that's very popular that celebrates Kwame Nkrumah's, the first president of Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
His mother this is not the same one, but you can see how intricate these are. I always love them because what they do, and especially this one, is do what we call optical mixing. When you're not close to the threads, you see something you can pick up and say, well, this is green and gold, but you don't know what it is back here. You know, it's totally something else, you know, and so forth. And so we'll see all of this being made. But again, strip weaving. So each one of these pieces are done individually, and then they're sewn together to make this. A man's and woman's cloth will be the big pieces like you saw us wear, and so forth. And it's not unusual to see pieces that are not as many colors, but again, this is emphasizing the golden stool, which is a very significant artifact in Ghana. The stool celebrates the Ashanti, who's the king of Ashanti. Okay, so, but this is one of those.
So when you get a piece of fabric like that, do you leave it in its entirety, or do people make things out of it? How does
Normally you leave it in its entirety. I had, and you don't want to hem any of that. You don't do that with the fabric. You leave it exactly the way it is. Now I had couple pieces that were in a show recently. I think what we did is that we were able to we showed these okay, see that strip of, okay, and we put this on a metal bar. So none of the bar was shown. Okay, so this is such that, and this is sewn on, and I can take this off. It's a piece of Velcro, and the other piece stuck on the other piece was adhesive on a piece of metal, and it stuck on there. If you like me to bring the metal by, you could show this piece here in the gallery.
Oh,
make
that's
the mix,
gorgeous.
you know, but
It's a gorgeous piece.
I'm telling you, he is still living in Bonware. He doesn't do as much work now, but you know, and these are Shante, and like I said, that's Awe, and it's identified in their book. Here is one of my students really hate this piece because it's an Adinkra print, okay, that we were talking about, funeral cloth, and usually it's going to be in red and black or brown and black, sometimes white if the person was a very elderly person who passed. And but it is not unusual to see this fabric being worn through, you know, and especially on Fridays and Saturdays when funerals are usually held. Okay, my former student, who's now an artist in here in Raleigh, she hates this because it's screen printed.
Oh.
It's not stamped. And so she said, it's moving away from tradition. Can't stand that piece. She said, you need to throw that away. I'm not throwing this away. Well, it's breaking tradition. Okay. But I was collecting samples. Here's a old piece. This is funeral cloth. And these, like I said, they're strips from, and that's